All right, here we go. Top 5 things that I learned from tonight's NBA draft. Number 1, the Orlando Magic did the right thing. I have no idea what all the smokescreen was about. There obviously is some sort of perceived value in doing that sort of thing because you see teams do it every year. I don't really understand. I feel like it's all just about chaos. That said, I thought the Magic made the right decision taking Paolo. I really like Jabari Smith. I think he's going to be a deeply impactful NBA basketball player. Arguably the most immediately impactful out of those top 3 guys. Because already right away, he has 2 elite NBA skills. Perimeter shooting and wing defense, right? So right away, he's going to be impactful at the NBA level. Probably more so, like he's the kind of guy that in terms of winning impact, maybe not statistically, but in terms of winning impact in his rookie year, he's probably going to be better than Paolo and probably better than Chet. But he's got so far to go in the other elements of his offensive game to reach a star ceiling that I thought he was a clear 3rd prospect in this draft. Yes, he's a knockdown 3-point shooter right now, but doesn't get great separation from defensive players right now, doesn't have good control over the basketball, doesn't see the floor very well, and it's pretty much jump shot heavy right now. He doesn't have that like versatile finishing package, which I'm going to talk about just a second here with Paolo. So, I mean, I didn't even understand what would have led the Magic to believe that was the right guy. And more importantly, I always love this last day type of mind-changing thing. There's no way in the world any of these teams didn't know exactly who they were taking or have an exact plan based on who was available coming into today. It's all just a big smokescreen. It was all really, really strange. I've talked a lot about Paolo with Carson yesterday, so I won't go too deep into it. But to me, he reminds me of Carmelo Anthony in terms of his potential ceiling. Carmelo was way more fluid from the perimeter at this point in his career than Paolo was. But a lot of the other elements of his game, it reminds me very much, like his fluidity in terms of his face-up game and all of his moves and counter moves in the mid to short range remind me of Carmelo. He's got the turnaround jump shot over both shoulders. He's got the step-back jump shot going both ways. He's got all of the push shots and floaters and hook shots and things in the lane that you have to score with size mismatches, which he's going to have a lot of them. He's got a 7'1.5" wingspan, 6'10". He's already got the physical tools, so to be able to have that face-up, that back-to-the-basket type of stuff at his age, it projects well if he can add the perimeter game for him to have defenders have to play up on him and then to be able to get consistent dribble penetration so that he can utilize that part of his game. Obviously, that's the ceiling, and with any one of these guys, there's a certain amount of risk, but I really liked the pick. I thought he was the clear best player in this draft. I thought he's the guy that has the most clear star potential. And he could be a much better defensive player than Carmelo was because of his measurables. Also, being on a team with Jonathan Isaac, dominant defensive player, one of the best defensive players in the league when he's healthy. And a guy like, Franz Wagner is another big wing who can guard multiple positions. He might not have to take on an on-ball role against a dominant basketball player for a long time. He could be a help defender, a guy that can use his length and athleticism around the rim and help. That team is starting to get really interesting too. Jalen Suggs, Markelle Fultz should be healthy this year. Jonathan Isaac sat out all of last year. He'll be back. Franz Wagner is like the ideal 3-and-D type of role player that could put the ball on the floor and attack closeouts and things along those lines. They just needed an alpha dog offensive talent. That's what Paolo is. So kudos to the Magic. I thought it was the right decision. Number 2, it's time for the Oklahoma City Thunder to start trying to win. This has been a very impressive asset collection strategy from them over the last half decade. You could argue it's a more coherent version of the process that Philly ran, obviously without the top-end talent that Joel Embiid was. But they've got a lot of really talented basketball players now. They had 3 additional top 12 picks today. Chet Holmgren, our guy Carson, thinks is the best prospect in this draft. This kid Jang is really versatile forward from the NBL, really good passer. They have a lot of really good passers now. Chet can put the ball on the floor and make plays for his teammates. SGA can make plays out of pick and roll. Josh Giddey, nice, big, classic point forward type of prospect. And Jang's got that as well. But you've got all these players. It's time to stop collecting assets and to start trying to win basketball games. I would go the Oklahoma City Thunder route in the similar way to the way they picked up Derek Fisher and Kendrick Perkins and basically had those guys round out the youth with veteran savvy and championship experience. that's the route I would go with OKC. And I'd start trying to put these guys in meaningful basketball games. Most importantly, guys, it's just hard to evaluate talent when they're playing in meaningless basketball games. How can you evaluate Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green with Houston when every night they're getting the other team's worst effort? At a certain point, you need to put these guys into some higher leverage situations to see what they're capable of playing against good NBA basketball teams with real stakes. And that, to me, would mean going for it and try to get a playing spot. Get yourself into some high-stakes environment and see what these guys are capable of. But I really like the pick, like the rebuild. It's just time now. It's time to actually start trying to win basketball games. Number 3, the Kings pulled another Kings. I really like Keegan Murray. And he's another guy like Jabari Smith that will immediately be able to help NBA basketball teams. I said this yesterday when I was talking with Carson. I'm not sure I've ever seen a young wing player that's younger than 22 that has the back to the basket game that he has. It's such a lost art in today's NBA and just overall in today's basketball culture. You still see it occasionally from big guys, but you just don't see perimeter players that have the ability that he has to position himself and to feel where the defender is and quick pivot both ways, hooks over both shoulders, floaters, things along those lines. He's got that, and he's going to be an impactful basketball player right away. But there's a clearly defined ceiling with him because he just doesn't have anywhere near the first step he needs to get separation against elite NBA defensive players. And Jaden Ivey was right there. I talked about this yesterday with Carson, but I'm not sure I've seen a guard with this type of power NBA athleticism since Dwayne Wade. We see a ton of freaky athletic wings come into the league. I mean, the Shaedon Sharp's a great example of this. A little more upright, a little more tall, that crazy vertical pop to where it just seems like his head's above the rim every single time. But then you see them play against a physical defensive player and they get bumped off at their spots and they struggle to leverage their physicality to get to different spots on the floor, and it effectively erases their athleticism. That's why we see so many freak athletes in the NBA that struggle to actually use that athleticism. Jaden Ivey's got that low center of gravity and he can take those really long strides like Dwayne Wade can. I think it was Shaq who used to say that Dwayne Wade had the hamstrings of a god. And that's athleticism always manifests in different kinds of ways. It's not just vertical pop. It can be foot speed. It can be linear speed. It can be long steps. The ability to take really long steps is super valuable in the NBA to get opportunities near the rim, to be able to evade help defenders and things along those lines. When you're on a line drive and a player's on your hip, the ability to bounce that guy off so that you can keep going rather than him bouncing you off of your line. That's a different type of athleticism. That's what I'm always referring to when I say low center of gravity. Jaden Ivey was right there. I thought he was clearly a better basketball player. Will he be able to help right this second? No, but you're the freaking Kings, man. You're not actually winning NBA basketball games right now. There isn't some achievable win now move for you. So I just didn't understand the thought process going after Keegan Murray, a really solid player that's going to immediately be able to help an NBA team that has a lower ceiling. You want to make that type of move when you have a little bit more of a win now potential, not when you're a team that's so far away the way the Kings are. Number 4, the Knicks are going to sign themselves up for purgatory once again. So they traded their lottery pick today and Kemba for cap space. And apparently, if you factor in the Mitchell Robinson cap hold, it's going to amount to about $16 million a year. So the intel is, according to Mark Stein, that they're going to throw basically a 4-year, $64 million contract at Jalen Brunson and try to steal him away from the Dallas Mavericks. Here's the issue. Is Jalen Brunson a top 10 NBA guard? No. Is Julius Randle a top 10 NBA forward? No. So in your rush to regain relevance, you are going to sign yourself up for extended purgatory. Any playoff series that you happen to find yourself in, your team's going to have the lesser guard and your team's going to have the lesser forward. I really like Jalen Brunson. I really like Julius Randle. Both of those guys should be 2s and 3s. Neither of them are qualified to be a number 1. And you are the New York Knicks. You are not a team that's going to struggle with free agent signings if you can just demonstrate competence. You will be able to one day, soon enough, bring a megastar if you have the cap flexibility and you just demonstrate some competence. Keep your head coach for a while. Develop some young basketball players. Accumulate assets. That's how the Lakers ended up getting Anthony Davis. Just accumulate the assets. We talked about this after the NBA Finals, but 8 of the last 11 NBA championships have gone to Steph Curry and LeBron James. Who won the other 3? Kawhi Leonard and Giannis. So you're not winning unless you've got the guy. So if you either need to have the guy or be working to getting the guy. Signing yourself up to make things more difficult for you to get the guy is what I don't understand. Now, again, when we're looking at this, it on the surface makes him better, right? Jalen Brunson in a 5-out system with the Dallas Mavericks last year was relatively inconsistent, but had some really big, really impactful playoff games. He's going to go in there and he's going to play really well, and the Knicks are going to be better. They're going to be in the playoffs, in the playoff picture in a way that they weren't last year. It all makes sense. But what I don't understand is that tying yourself into that type of contract with Jalen Brunson, which at the end of the day is going to be difficult to move because as good as he is, $16 million a year is a lot of money. I just was confused by the strategy. Now, who knows? They might be thinking, hey, we get Jalen Brunson, he's a mid-level contract. Maybe we can package him with 2 or 3 of our young players and maybe get that star. All I'm saying is that better be the plan. The plan better not be, let's see if Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle can get this done. It better be, we plan on moving these guys to get the star. And last but not least, the Pistons got lucky. Jaden Ivey should not have been there at number 5, and he was, thanks to the Keegan Murray pick, who, again, I like Keegan Murray. I just thought it was the wrong pick. I think Jaden Ivey I see him as the potential Jaylen Brown to Cade's Tatum. Now, obviously, they're different. Jaden Ivey's shorter, different type of player. What I mean by that, though, is Cade is your finesse wing. He's that guy that's doing it with skill and change of pace and floor vision and game management, all those things that I value greatly from a perimeter initiator. But Cade is not a dominant athlete. And against the very best defenses, he might struggle from time to time to create his own shot, even when he's in his prime. Jaden Ivey is never going to have that problem. Like I said earlier, I think he's one of the best athletic prospects at the guard position since Dwayne Wade. And I think that having him there is the guy that can be the physical force to be reckoned with. The guy that has unmatchable athleticism to give him the capability of creating shots. I think it's a great counter to Cade. And Cade can kind of manage the flow of the game and be your perimeter initiator. And Jaden Ivey can just be your tip of the spear in a very similar way to what Jaylen Brown was for the Celtics. They've got another really interesting young core. I like Sadiq Bey as another two-way wing. This Jalen Duren kid that they drafted, classic modern center. We've talked a lot about this. That plodding, slow, giant center just doesn't work in the NBA anymore. It needs to be an athlete. It's almost better for him to be 6'9", 6'10" than it is for him to be 7 foot. You need him to be able to get up and down the floor in transition. You need him to be able to occasionally make guys work on perimeter switches, and he needs to be able to roll hard to the rim and contain in 5-out situations where he's got to cover a lot of ground. You need mobility at the position. So I really like the Jalen Duren pick, and all of a sudden the Pistons look like a very interesting basketball team. But yeah, those are my top 5 takeaways from this year's NBA draft. I will be at NBA Summer League for that first weekend, and I'm going to get to see, I think, most of these guys, if not all of them, play. We'll have all sorts of content lined up for that weekend. I'm very, very excited. As always, I appreciate your guys' support, and I will see you next time.